Well, thank you everyone for joining. I'm Carly Egged, one of your workplace experience managers here at BICO. We're so excited that all of you joined us for today's Summer Pass series with mixologist Ariel Neal and the CEO of Shall We Wine, Regine Rousseau. I know I'm excited to kick off the weekend and learn how to make these two new drinks. So I'm gonna hand it over to these creative ladies and get the show started. So
Awesome.
Regine, all you.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here. Just to give you a little background about Shall We Wine, we are an experiential marketing company. So prior to COVID-19, everything that we did was client facing. As soon as we were sheltered in place, we flipped to virtual. And it was really easy for us because we did a lot of videos, a lot of TV, even prior to COVID. So we love doing these events. As you can tell, Ariel, you'll see her background. We are deep into the wine and spirits world. So we love putting these events on, and we want this to be as interactive as you'd like it to be. So don't feel bad about stopping us, using the icon, raising your hand, asking questions. So I would introduce Ariel Neal. Ariel and I partner on many events. So when we used to do client-facing events, she was always my first call when I needed a mixologist, because she creates some of the most amazing cocktails. So I'll let Ariel introduce herself, and then we'll make cocktails.
My favorite. Hello, everybody. Regine, thank you so much for having me. Carly, it's always a pleasure to see you. I am so excited to be here. I definitely want to share with you a mocktail and a cocktail, but I also want to share a couple of other things with you. One of the number one questions I get often is, what should we have at the bar? So I want to run through that, but I also want to run through what should you have at the bar and how can we make this effective for COVID. I know that our parties are going to get smaller in terms of people, and sometimes we're not going out at all. So I want to show you guys how to entertain in your home the best way possible.
I'm still entertaining. I had 5 people over last week, so that was great. Okay, the most important thing though, Ariel, is we have to make a cocktail, because I'm like a lot more entertaining when people have a cocktail in their hand. All right, so
we're going to do a mocktail, and I'm going to show you the basic ingredients, and we're going to flip that into a cocktail. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. So just in case I was talking over Ariel, we will make the mocktail first, but you can change it up and make it into a cocktail if you'd like. Guess which one I'm going to do, Ariel?
You're going to do the cocktail, because I know you oh so well. Which is perfectly fine. So a lot of times people say, I don't have all of this stuff in my house. I'm going to show you how to repurpose some things that's going to make a lot of sense for you. Starting with our mocktail, we have some fresh berries. I have some beautiful blueberries that are in here. You may use whatever berry you like. I am the person that says, if you love it, you should use it and learn how to work with that thing. So blueberries work, strawberries work, whatever you have works. So I have already made a shrub, which is in here. And let me just show you what that looks like. So a shrub is a very primitive way of making a cocktail mixer. So if you look in there, this is simply sugar, apple cider vinegar, and that is all. And what's going to happen is you're going to let that sit and hang. And what I mean sit and hang, I mean you can use it, you can let it hang out for a couple of days. Because there's so much acidity in there, it's actually self-stable. But I want to make this with you guys. I want to show you my super cool trick that I'm using. I'm going to take this away for just a second. I'll bring it back in a little bit and tell you guys what that is. So,
Ariel, are you using, so I actually, and we didn't plan this, but I did blueberry as well. So do you use fresh blueberries? Do you use frozen? What do you recommend?
Good question. I am an avid fan of the farmer's market. I am using fresh.
Okay.
They last so much longer and they're beautiful. If by chance we don't have fresh, please, 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 there's nothing wrong with cans. There's absolutely nothing wrong with frozen. And I'll give you a tip. Frozen berries, a lot of times, are the best berries, and I'll tell you why. They are picked at the peak of the freshness. So even though we can get strawberries are only really good right now. Have you ever had this strawberry explosion? You're like, these are all actually pretty terrible, and I just wasted my money. So frozen will not do that to you. But nonetheless, I'm going to show you how to make this so it's absolutely beautiful. I don't know if everybody has one, but this is a French press. Everybody's going like, oh, what is she getting ready to do? All right. Here are my wonderful blueberries. Everything is going in here. And so I'm using this as my measuring cup. One of my friends said, you have a lot of fancy stuff that most people don't have. Bring it down the notch. No problem. Everybody has a small ramekin container. This is so simple and so easy. It is sugar, the same amount of sugar, to the same amount of apple cider vinegar, and voila, you are.
Ariel, are you filling that halfway?
Filled it, so it's the same amount of liquid. I already had some of this liquid already, so I was basically just kind of showing you for the camera. And then I add a tiny bit of salt and maybe some black pepper, and that's it. So if you do not have a fresh juice press, this works amazing. I'm not going to tell you it works really good with the apple because it doesn't, but watermelon is fantastic. Of course, pineapple, anything with a juicy middle, pineapples, sometimes peaches, and then we're just going to press this out. We're going to let it sit for a little bit, and this is going to become our shrub. Now, because we're making a mocktail, the other thing that you want to do is you want to have some beautiful fresh ingredients. Here is some beautiful mint, and here is some nice basil. This basil is actually like 3 weeks old, but I keep picking off of it because it's great. All right, so when we make our mocktails, you decide how much you want and how much you need. We're gonna start with the Collins glass because it's very beautiful. I'm gonna get a little bit of ice. I'll use some regular ice. Now, Regine will tell you I am an ice snob.
Yes, she is.
Fanatic. I think it's important to temper drinks according to what you're doing and when you're doing it. And also decide if this is a sipper or is this gonna be a slammer. I think large ice cubes in drinks make all the difference in the world. It looks luxurious and also it keeps your cocktail, okay? So I have my beautiful shrub here. I'm gonna pour a tiny bit in. Look how beautiful this color is.
If you were measuring it out, Ariel, does it matter how much? Are you talking about an ounce or is it just?
So you should do at least an ounce, but here's my thing. You're gonna taste every single thing. I think that's sometimes where we get messed up at. We go, oh, it doesn't taste like what it was supposed to taste like in the restaurant. Well, you need to make sure what you're drinking is good for you. And that only comes with being able to, you know, is it an ounce? Is it a quarter of an ounce? What is it? This is about an ounce and a half, give or take.
So Ariel, before you move on, I'm curious about the shrub. How long does it stay in the fridge? How long is it good for?
So actually, to be quite honest, I never really put mine in the fridge because I like to taste it every day to see where it's going. Okay. Obviously, the more acid you have, the more tart it's going to feel. But if you do the 3-3-3 ratio, which is 3 of your fruit, 3 of your sugar, 3 of your apple cider vinegar, and by the way, you can use any vinegar. White wine vinegar works really good here. Champagne vinegar works really good here. You're just going to taste it. After about 2 or 3 days, there is a beautiful even balance. Of course, you get the tartness, but you also get the sweetness as well.
Okay. Just to clarify, when you say 3-3-3, you mean a third. So equal portions of each.
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha.
So I would use the same vessel and just dump. Okay, now I have some beautiful soda waters here. This by far is my favorite. This is ginger beer by Q. I love it because it is low in calories and it actually has a little bit of capsaicin. So it makes everything go mwah. This is a thing that I found. I was in Paris when I found it. So Schweppes is on the market doing beautiful things with soda waters and beers and stuff like that. So this is actually ginger beer with Tahitian lime in it. So this is super delicious. And then if you say, you know what, all of that is way too much, I got something else better for you. We can do straight Fever Tree soda water. And we have a lot of that. Well, this is tonic water. I'm actually going to do a little bit of both. So a tiny bit of tonic. And let's do a little bit of Schweppes. And I like this combination because tonic can sometimes be a little too tart, and then this just mellows it out. But I don't want all of the ginger beer. And then again, play with it. Now, here's Regine's favorite part. So Regine, please do this with me.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if you were going to do this today. All right.
First. So anytime you have herbs and they're going into your cocktail, you want to slightly bruise the herb. Slightly bruising means slapping. You can do like this up against your hands. What that does is bring out the aromatics and it brings out the oils, and you now have this lovely, beautiful cocktail. So
Ariel, let me stop you for one quick second.
Sure.
Two things. Now, Ariel made a shrub, and because we wanted to show you what it was like to make the shrub, we sent you a simpler recipe, which is for a simple fruit syrup. Okay, so it's really the same technique. A fruit syrup mirrors a simple syrup. So it's 1 part water, 1 part sugar, and 1 part whatever berries you like to use or whatever fruit. Again, I chose to use blueberries just like Ariel did. But the shrub, I like it because what it does is it gives the mocktail a little bit more complexity because you have the acid from the vinegar. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful balance. One of the things that we've learned with doing this is mocktails are more difficult to make than cocktails because most people make a very simple mocktail where it's a little sugar and some juice. Well, that's not interesting. With the shrub, you have sweet, you have sour, and then with using the tonic water, you have like all of these different flavors, and so your mocktail can be as satisfying as a cocktail.
absolutely, absolutely. All right, we are moving on. You may take your mocktail, and let's do a quick toast.
Oh,
So,
right.
During COVID, there are so many things that we couldn't do. And I said, you know, I'm so tired of talking about what we can't do. Let us celebrate and raise a glass. And when I'm in a company, when I'm among friends and stuff like that, I always say, cheers to you, and then tell us what you're grateful for. I don't know if we have time for that, but if you say it in your head and we have it for our intentions, cheers to all of you all. And I'm so grateful to be here with you all, showing you how to make cocktails and beautiful summer party setups.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So yummy. So Ariel, if I wanted to make this into a cocktail, what would I do?
I'm glad you asked that question.
That's why I'm here.
You are definitely going to add just a couple of ingredients that make sense. The way that I build cocktails is I use the smallest ingredient that I'm going to use first, or the least expensive. So my least expensive ingredient right now is my shrub. So we're gonna do a tiny bit of shrub. And when I say tiny bit, I really mean an ounce. And because this is the beautiful thing about making things, you're at home. If you want to use 2 ounces, you can use 2 ounces. Fine with us. Okay.
Ariel, I have a quick question. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
What is the purpose of the apple cider vinegar? That's different for me. I never heard of that.
When you're building cocktails and when you're building mixers, there is a sugar component and then there is a sour component. The two of them meeting is a symbiotic balance. It's a symbiotic balance of mouthfeel, of acidity. So you can use other things besides apple cider vinegar. You may use lemons or limes. However, lemons or limes are fruits and they're going to turn bad. Your apple cider vinegar is going to play with you for a very long time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I understand that it's like the bitterness, the sugar. Actually, if you let it sit and do its thing, you will find, seriously, you will find that this is going to be something amazing and delicious. This is how balsamic vinaigrettes get started. Yep. Think about it that way.
Makes
All
sense.
right. So I have my shrub in here and we're going to make a margarita. Do we know the components of margaritas? I hear a lot of people say we have tequila and we have lime and then we have that. That is not a margarita. That is tequila and lime. And tequila. Yes. I mean, it's something, but that's not what we're making.
So, Ariel, before you move on to the mezcal margarita, did we talk a little bit about how we're going to turn this into a cocktail versus a mocktail? What's the simple switch?
So what you would do is you would not add the soda water, but if you wanted to use just this, you would take your mezcal or whatever spirits you like. The things that work really well with the berries, champagne is beautiful, vodka is amazing. Your favorite gin is amazing as well. You're just simply going to add about 1.5 ounces, or really just see what you can fit in the cup. I got 1.5 ounces in my cup. And then give that a swirl. Do you guys have long straws or stirs? Yeah. So a long time ago, these were very popular and everybody went, I don't know what we're using those for. These are dumb. Get a long straw or a stir. It's cool to mix things up and it's also cool to just have really cool tools. Oh, I actually really like that. Okay.
I'm glad you do. You're gonna pat yourself on the back.
So in a regular margarita, we would have lime, we would have sugar, we would have a triple sec. This is cumbia, which is the original triple sec. This is made with oranges from cumbia. And basically what happens is it is a liqueur and it is 70% sugar to bitter orange. That is what all triple sec is. If it says anything else than that, I guess it's just a liqueur, but this is what you want to get that like orange flavor, okay? Because we have our acid is our apple cider vinegar, we don't need limes. However, if that's something you want to use, by all means, I juiced a bunch, I have some here, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute.
So before we get to that, Ariel, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about mezcal, since that's the spirit that we're going to use today.
Okay. So,
and then let's taste it. Is anyone tasting with us? If anyone's following along, let us know. Just make sure that we are. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about mezcal and let's taste it.
So actually, I have a really great friend here.
Uncle Fluffy in here.
So a little background about Uncle Fluffy. Uncle Fluffy is basically El Silencio Mezcal. He's part owner in El Silencio Mezcal. And he is the expert and can tell us all things.
Okay, wait a minute, everyone. I have to stop because I knew she was there, but I didn't know you were going to join us. This is such a great treat.
I was just walking through the kitchen and I got pulled into the video.
I love it. Well, I will let you talk. Tell us a little bit about Mezcal, about El Silencio.
Can I just mention that back bar behind you is glorious, but I'll just, okay. All right, so Mezcal basically is the oldest North American spirit in existence. It predates tequila about 400 years. The major differences between tequila and mezcal is that they're both agave spirits, but tequila technically can only be made from blue river agave. And mezcal can be made from over 40 different types. So we relate it to wine, which is perfect context, is that it's more or less like the difference between having let's be very specific. Let's talk about like a Sancerre versus a Sauvignon Blanc, right? Sancerre has to come from a direct region from a particular grape. And even though the grapes are very similar in genealogy and all that, there's certain differences in the terroir and things like that. Tequila is just that specific. It is the Sancerre of the agave world. It can only come from certain regions and be made from one type of agave. And mezcal is a little more nuanced, and the rules are a lot more relaxed in that it can be made from over 40 different types of agave. Somewhat similar. It's not a direct metaphor or parallel, but you get my drift. So the other thing is that in order to get the sugars out of an agave plant that's been sitting there for years on end, you have to cook it, right? I liken agave to Brussels sprouts. When you buy a raw Brussels sprout, it's hard, it's like a rock. But as you cook it, it becomes sweeter and more delicate. And that's the same thing with agave. We have to, in tequila, they steam them in ovens called autoclaves. And then in mezcal, they dig a pit and pile the agaves in it and roast them for 3 or 4 days underground in what's called a horno. And that's where you get that really robust, earthy, and smoky flavor profile from, is that roast that happens underground. They're both crushed in different ways. That juice is fermented and then distilled. And that's why you get such a smoky flavor from mezcal. But I have to harp on the fact that mezcal has been here longer than tequila. And a lot of the traditions and things that tequila have today is because of the mezcal, the way of mezcal. And I will close with saying that mezcal is, again, the most indigenous spirit that we have here in North America. It is one of the original spirits that we've had here since the distillation made its way here, arguably by way of the Spaniards or the Chinese. But that is another whole conversation, happy hour. It would take me forever. But Regine, it is such an honor and a pleasure to see you. You're glowing as usual, per usual.
Yeah, thank you. This is a real treat. I mean, Uncle, I don't know why they call you Uncle Fluffy. I still haven't figured that out. But this is one of the leading mezcal experts. Again, I didn't expect you to hop on, so I thank you for that.
Oh, it's.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
How long do you have to ferment the agave before it becomes alcohol?
Before you distill it?
Mm-hmm.
So the fermentation process can take up to 5 days, depending on the climate. We're talking about Mexican deserts, and sometimes the temperature can get down below 50. Mm-hmm. So the warmer it is, obviously, the quicker that fermentation process happens. I would say with our brand, we don't add any proprietary yeast. All the yeast that aid in the fermentation process are natural born, airborne yeast.
Awesome. Is anyone tasting? Because I recommend if you have the mezcal, I'm looking at my screen to see if your tables are set up, but I recommend tasting it neat first. So that means no ice, excuse me, and before we make the cocktail. So that way you really get a feel for how gorgeous the spirit is. Okay, Ariel, I turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you've tasted, and to me, mezcal is one of these beautiful spirits that lighten and brighten the world. And I say that because it's so different than what you're tasting. A lot of people think of it as like really kind of smoky and aromatic, but I want to tell you about ways to make this a beautiful, beautiful, harmonious drink. It goes with everything. You're going to replace this with your tequila. You will replace it with any unaged spirit. It can go with fruits and vegetables. I have this beautiful, it's a fruit tray, if you will, but I soak all the fruit in mezcal. And people are like, oh my God, what have we had here? And these are people who say, you know, I really don't enjoy that smoky flavor. However, when you're putting stuff together and layering flavors is what I like to call that, you have a different palate and you're able to kind of taste through some things. And I love that because you can say, I like this or I don't like that. And I think that's very, very important. All right. Are we ready? Has everyone tasted? And if you haven't tasted, perhaps we can find a way for you to get some little mini bottles. Let's see if Uncle Fluffy can do something.
I need some.
You need some. Okay. Regine and Carly, please find a way for us to send her something, if that's okay.
This is being recorded, so we'll talk offline.
Got you. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we definitely have our shrub is in the tin already, because remember we started with the least expensive ingredient. Now we're going to use our triple sec. And if you don't have this, you can use anything you want. I love this because Regine always talks about if you have few ingredients, make them be the best ever. Have you all ever had a dish and it was like 4 things and you're like, this blew my mind? And it was lettuce and tomatoes and cheese and pepper. We're done. But because the ingredients were so amazing, you were like, I am in love. So we're gonna use a 1/2 ounce. That goes in. And of course, our mezcal. Now, I always keep mezcal, vodka, and gin in my freezer. So we're gonna do 2 ounces of that. I'm gonna get some ice for us. And don't be afraid to make different types of margaritas. You have your classic, of course, with gin wine, your triple sec, and then of course your tequila or mezcal. But I always think margaritas are supposed to be played with in different ways. So we're just gonna dump all of that in here. If you're making this cocktail with us, make sure you fill up your tin, and we're gonna see the shake super hard, super fast. I like to make sure that I have a tight closed lid here, and then we're just gonna, so we know that it's super cold because obviously there's a lot of chill going on here, but you want the whole thing to be very cold. This is called a Hawthorne Strainer. And we're gonna go straight into our glass here. Now, if you like, this would be the perfect opportunity to take a line, rim the outside, and this is where you would use your salt or your sugar for a even more meaningful experience, if that's what you like. I'm not a salt girl, so I'm just gonna go straight in.
That looks pretty.
Thank you so much.
What is making it that color?
That mixture with the blueberries and stuff.
Yeah, so these are actual blueberries.
Oh, I missed
The shrub.
Yeah, the shrub went in, and then we did our cumbia, and then we had our mezcal. We'll give it a taste. That is really good.
So I want to make that. So what we sent you is a simplistic version of what Ariel is, the cocktail that she made. But what Ariel wanted to do was show you how to use this shrub in different ways. So what we sent you was simply, I fell in love with this particular product when I had it in a very simple margarita. So we did 2 ounces of mezcal.
And can you get mezcal anywhere? Anywhere that Liquors are sold?
Where do you live?
I live in Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
To be, I'm in Upper Marlboro. It should be everywhere. I know that it's at Target.
Costco has this. Costco has it.
Costco has it. I know that it's in Target.
Okay.
And I know that it's definitely in DC. I wish I just saw the list of all the places that they've been moving cases, but it is definitely here for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And he's been selling it here for sure. That's how I know.
Well, hi, neighbor.
Go up to Ariel's later for drinks. But if you're making the simplest version, it's 2 ounces of the Mezcal, 1 ounce of fresh lime juice, and then half an ounce of agave. But I created my own simple syrup. Because I prefer that to agave.
Okay.
And I did a jalapeno simple syrup just to play around with it. And that is the easier, simpler version. 3 ingredients and you're good.
That's safe.
So any questions right now? Questions, comments? Carly, are you making margaritas along with us?
I am attempting to do my best over here.
What do you have so far?
I have tequila because I'm a big tequila girl. And now I am attempting to squeeze as much lime juice as I'm supposed to, but I don't think I'm going to get there in this time.
Okay, so you have to have one of those lemon squeezers. That's one of my favorite tools. It would just change your life because, you know, we make cocktails all day. Do you have one in front of you, Ariel?
I do not, but I'm about
Okay,
to.
I have one. I can show it to you. You know what I'm talking about. I can show it to you.
I don't have one.
This is yummy.
Here's the other thing I will tell you. If you're attempting to juice or squeeze a lime, take your lime and roll it really hard because that kind of like loosens up the juice a bit. And when you cut it, you'll see all of the juice and stuff like that. If also, here's another thing that I like to use. You can kind of get away with muddling stuff and just take, you know, cut it in half and muddle it. You'll get a lot of the juice out that way as well. I know a lot of people use mix for their margaritas, which is cool.
No!
Well, we can't tell people what they can't use,
Okay,
but I will say it is worth your weight in having a beautiful lime juice. It makes the entire difference. That is the difference of, you know, 99-cent lipstick and your very beautiful silky lipstick that stays on all day and looks appropriate for every occasion.
I love that analogy. I love that. Okay, so a few questions that always come up, Ariel.
Yes.
Do we shake or when do we stir a cocktail?
Okay, here's the thing. When we shake, we are trying to impart water for dilution. Obviously, we're going to make it cold, but there has to be a little bit of viscosity. So we're shaking for those reasons. Typically, the rule is if it has sugar and if it has juice in it, you are to shake. 9 times out of 10, when you're making a spirit-forward cocktails, those are those old-fashioned martinis, Manhattans, those things are going to be stirred because we are not really trying to bruise the liquid. We are just trying to incorporate it gently. And a little, most of those things are spirit forward as well. So there's no juice there. There's no sugar there. There are bitters. You can say there's a tiny bit of sugar in your old fashions, but for the most part, those are bitters and those are a spirit forward cocktail. And then you would pour that over ice or it gets served up.
So another question that always comes up is about ice. And you hinted on it earlier because you called yourself an ice snob. And I am here to testify that yes, she is. She always makes fun of my ice because I just use traditional cubes. But so I did buy the big ice cube trays. So tell us a little bit about when to use, when to use one or the other?
So to be quite honest, I use a bigger ice cube a lot of times, especially if I'm doing one-on-one type of parties. I can use that ice more than once and pour through several cocktails as long as it's the same cocktail. So the large format ice is going to give you obviously coldness, but it's not going to dilute as fast. Here's a quick tip. A lot of times we'll go out and we'll have a drink and the icy, frozen, whatever looks really good. They are only putting in the same amount of liquid as to what the original cocktail asked for, so if you want it on ice. Most times your ice is going to dilute and make that thing more watery and more gross than ever. So no, don't do, I won't say don't do, it would be better for you to have a classic margarita served up with ice than a frozen drink, because they're not compensating and the ratio is off. Most times your drink is going to be 2.5 to 2 ounces. They're only going to put 2.5 to 2 ounces, but they put all of that ice in there so it goes faster. Unless you plan on slurping that down quickly, which could also be a problem, like brain freeze and all the other stuff. It doesn't make sense.
Or you can just add another shot, right?
Absolutely. You surely could.
So
Ariel,
I
I have
think,
a question.
Sure.
If you were to make like a bigger batch of margaritas, like you want to make a pitcher of margaritas for a group, what would be like your estimates for parts, like, you know, numbers, or to do that instead of just making it in one glass?
3, 2, 1. 3 parts are going to go to the actual tequila. 2 is going to compensate for the lime, and 1 and 1 is for the sugar and the triple sec. So if you can remember 3, 2, 1, that is a classic build for most punches. Also, a lot of times I batch for a lot of different clients, and there's these recipes that are out there that are on the internet. There's lots of things they don't tell you that will expand your batch, such as bitters will expand it, ice expands it, all of these things. Taste through that to see if you like it first. And the taste is simply, you know, I have this big giant batch. What does it need more of? If it feels hot and fiery, you're going to add some more ice. If it feels flat and not enough, you're going to add some more triple sec. Does that help you? Okay.
so
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. I love this mixology class. I'm loving it. My drink came out pretty well. But I just want to ask, are we doing agave nectar and simple syrup, or just one or the other? Or you can do both?
You can do whatever you
One or
want.
the other.
Yeah, one or the other for sure.
Okay.
And listen, you are your own fan when it comes to how much sweetness you like. So if you don't want a whole ounce, by all means. Regine is not a sweet person. She normally kind of cuts back from the sugar.
I'm very nice.
That is, I admit you do not appreciate lots of sugar in your drinks. And here's some other things. Don't be afraid to try different stuff. Honey is my friend. I love it to death. I also use maple syrup. Maple syrup with bourbon, out of this world. A lot of times, and this is kind of segueing into the party that you might have for some of your friends during this time. Don't be afraid to use the ingredients that are in your home. If you know that they're sweet and they're delicious, please, by all means, use those things. It's unnecessary to go to the store and spend $500 on your bar. If you're just buying alcohol, there's some things that, of course, I believe that you need to make a great party, because you're not just drinking with yourself, you're inviting people over. You want to make sure that you have enough for everyone. But the other thing is these things don't have to be like earth-shattering. You're not breaking the bank. You're inviting people over to partake in libations and drinking and having a good time. And right now, that is a very coveted experience.
That is true. So I wanted to add something, and we can talk about this. So when we do our classes, and we do a class every Friday, we love syrups. So we make a lot of syrups, and I would encourage all of you to experiment. So remember the recipe that we gave you in the Italian soda is the basis for any syrup that you can create, that you want to create. So like I said, because I wanted to try it, I did a jalapeno pepper syrup. So water, sugar, jalapeno pepper, come to a boil, let it cool. Ariel mentioned honey. So one of my favorites we did a few weeks ago was honey, water, and rosemary. Delicious. So I make my syrups and I use jars like this or jars like this, and I just have a few of them in the fridge. And so when I'm ready to make a cocktail or even a mocktail, they're ready for me to experiment with. And usually I'll have a little note on top with what's in it, so because I'll forget. But I really encourage you all to play around with syrups, and you can really elevate your cocktails.
How long will that syrup last in the refrigerator?
That's a great question. It depends on how much air you incorporate. So Regine keeps hers in a locked, closed jar, airtight. That should last for at least 3 to 4 months. And what you want to do is just look at it and shake it. If it's super cloudy, maybe smell it. But what's happening is air is not getting into it. But there are some fruits that are going to go bad. Citrus, there's a clock ticking on that. So lemons, limes, grapefruits, there's a clock ticking on it. That is one of the reasons why I enjoy making a shrub over just straight syrup, because it lasts a lot longer. They often don't have to be refrigerated. They can be. Here's a cool tip. If you are making lots of lots of syrups, which here, I'll show you mine here. These are all the syrups that I've made over the last 2 or 3 days. I add maybe a teaspoon of vodka, and what that does is makes them stable. There's nothing else added to them that's going to make it shelf stable. So when you start doing these things, you'll see that your syrups taste often better than the stuff that you're getting in the store.
Absolutely.
Also, you know what you put in there.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I don't ever use agave. There's nothing wrong with it, but I feel like a syrup I make at home will taste better than agave to me. We didn't talk, let's talk a little bit about that home bar.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that we always get is, okay, Ariel and Regine, if I had to have 5 spirits in my bar, what would it be? And Ariel and I always disagree, but that's okay. So I'll let you go first, and I'll let you know if I agree or disagree.
If I'm at my home bar and I invited all of you wonderful people over, it is true I don't know what you drink, but I hope that I can at least please you in some way, shape, or form. I always have a red wine and a white wine, no matter what. I don't care what the situation is. And to me, we're still in the same category. So that's not 2 different things. That's a red and a white. It's the combination. It's like left and right. They don't sell them different. Okay, so red and white wine. I also have some bubbles of some sort. I do have some champagne, and you can take your pick about what kind that you like. But I think that you need to have a vodka for sure. I also feel like you need to have a spirit that is very, very nuanced or different. And while Mezcal is not as nuanced as we think it is, but it is just coming into the market, and you have somebody there that's going to be like, you know what, I really appreciate something in this category. I choose this over tequila, and the reason why is because you can bring that smoke back. If that's something that's very overpowering to you, there are ways to bring that back. And so I think that's one of the cool things. Also, I think that you need a bourbon. We can say whiskey, but I believe the bourbon is probably a better choice because you can do more things with that. Also,
are you able to share what kinds you think? Like not something that's super expensive, something
sure.
reasonable.
Okay, let's see. So entry levels of bourbon, I definitely love and appreciate High West, and let me tell you why. High West is a beautiful expression of things to drink. There are 4 major ones that they use. They have a bourbon, they have a double rye, which is amazing. Actually, I really appreciate their double rye. They have this thing called Campfire, which is a little bit smoky and beautiful. And then they have this Rendezvous rye, which has a baking spice on it. You taste through either one of those, you have to love at least one of them, if not all of them. And I believe the price points are amazing as well. Spirits are part of our everyday kind of, they're everyday part of what we're eating and drinking. If I have eggs in the refrigerator, I know that I have some bourbon. Do not skip on trying to save costs on things that really don't make sense. I love when I hear people say, oh, well, just get whatever kind of vodka. Do not get whatever kind of vodka, because those things aid in your hangover for the next day. If that makes sense. There we go. Look at Regine, right on time. So we talked about wine. We talked about champagne or a sparkling wine. I prefer champagne. And we talked about bourbon. I also want you to have a gin. Gin is very, very important. There are rules and regulations to gin nowadays. You have more juniper forward. You have no juniper at all. Like a Hendrix is a new style of gin. Get some gin. If you've had experiences with gin, people say, oh my God, I can't take it. That's because you had something that didn't agree with you, or you did too much of. And if it was way back when, I won't tell my age, but I know spring chicken. Back in the day, I was like, oh no, I couldn't do gin. The absolute smell of it would just send me to a tizzy. Nowadays, I realized what I was doing wrong. First of all, I was having too much of it, and we were doing shots. So now that I'm older and I know better, there are some beautiful gins out there that I would love for you to try. And then try them the way that you want to. Figure it out. Do it with water. Do it with tonic water. Do it with soda water. This is your opportunity to play with things. So when you do go out and you can say, I will have this cocktail that costs set amount, because they're not going to be the same amount of money anymore. And you can have a great experience and not feel like you're wasting anything or going through trials and errors. Did I cover all 5?
I think you did. And so I never include wine, and I'm glad you did, because that's a white, red, and a sparkling I completely agree with. I would throw a rosé in there.
There we go.
So we usually disagree on the spirits, but today we're on the same page. And the one that I would recommend from High West, if you're starting out, is the American Prairie if you want a bourbon, or the double rye if you like something spicier. This is the Rendezvous, which is my absolute favorite, but this is a higher end. The double rye and the American Prairie both are $30. This is $80, but it's just more sophisticated. It's a sipping bourbon. So I would start with the other 2. I agree with your list today. What? Are you coming over to my side?
Well, maybe a little bit. You're already great in that way, so I don't feel like I need to add anything to that. I would just like to sit back, relax, and listen to you and drink some stuff.
So someone in the chat mentioned the Elijah Craig. That is beautiful.
Oh,
bourbon.
I have so many amazing stories with Elijah Craig. To be perfectly honest, I'm going to an event tomorrow with Heaven Hill. Elijah Craig is absolutely beautiful. And I appreciate Elijah Craig because it's an older style, which means there isn't many nuances. So the bourbon has gone through some changes where we want to add stuff to it. We want to put peaches in it and all this other stuff. Don't do that. Don't buy that. I'm not saying it's not great, but if you wanted peaches, you just add peaches. There's no need for it to live in the bottle with the bourbon. Bourbon is amazing on its own.
Agreed. And then someone mentioned, which I don't get a lot of requests for, which I think is great, the Highland Park single malt Scotch. Huge. If you like the smokiness, Ariel mentioned the Campfire from High West, which is a blend of a rye, a bourbon, and a peated scotch. That's a really like amazing product to check out.
Yes.
I do like the Highland single malt.
So here's what I think about scotch. I am a scotch fan. I love it to death. I am not a fan of very peaty scotches. So a Lefroy is only my friend one time in a cocktail for that night, right? That you have to figure out the things that you love. I get a lot of people say, well, what should I put on my bar? And they want to impress their friends and they put a bunch of stuff on there, which is amazing. However, if you don't like it, that doesn't make sense for me. And Highland Park is a beautiful, beautiful scotch. It's a nice price point as well. I want you to find things that you absolutely love and enjoy. And what happens is when you start to bring these people over, most people come in hand with a bottle. So they'll start to bring stuff that you enjoy.
They're not allowed to come in if they don't have a bottle.
Agreed.
Are there any questions about anything that we talked about? You know, I know you were looking for specific brands. Do you need any more recommendations for any brands? Happy to provide any feedback.
If for a second, I would like to take you to a little section. This is the nice section of the house. And we often do tastings here. I don't live here, but I pretend like I do. So I can make up rules and regulations as I go along. But I'm going to take you guys over here very quickly and just show you. So this is a good home bar, but this person is also a bartender. So the pick of the litter is amazing. Lots of friends gift, and I'll just show you a couple of things. So at the top, if you can see that, these are all different types of mezcal and tequilas. They're coming from Oaxaca. They've also come from a lot of wonderful and amazing places in...
Michoacan?
I'm sorry?
Michoacan?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some cool stuff. So this is the agave shelf here. Of course, El Silencio was on this shelf. These are the Japanese whiskeys, which are malted and delicious. And we have an 18-year Yamazaki that is normally going for more than $500. Don't ask how he got it, but he did.
Are there any Japanese whiskey fans on the call?
No, but are there any Japanese whiskeys that are less than $500?
Yes. Absolutely.
I recommend a Hibiki. This is a 12-year-old. I want to say it's maybe $60. Oh, does he have one there too? So this would be a good one to try.
Yep.
I'm learning that I can't afford to have a bar. That's what I'm learning.
You just need to have a party and be very specific about what you want people to bring.
Yes.
That is the best way of stocking up your bar. So yes. Ariel, we're coming on the hour, so I don't want to take, oh my goodness, Whistle Pig. I need to take a trip to Maryland to drink all of this stuff. But we don't want to take up any extra time. We want to give everyone a chance to ask any final questions before we turn it back over to Carly. No? I see something in the chat.
Yeah.
Let's see, the best way to start a bar, also when starting a bar, have drink stations.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So earlier I talked about different syrups and stuff like that that you can make. I think that it is absolutely imperative, especially right now, get a bunch of stuff that you enjoy, but also get a bunch of stuff that you know people can make a cocktail with. So we make cocktails with limes and lemons. We have soda waters. There's a couple of different juices. Put them in something cute and refreshing. Have a bowl of ice out for people to use. You will find that when people are making cocktails, they don't pour a whole bunch. They are sometimes unsure of what they're going to make, or they're like, I don't want to waste it. And I think that's really, really cool. I also suggest that while doing all of these things, set it up so people can do it themselves. And if you like something very nice, I often enjoy Moscow mules, and I make those with any type of spirit. make a little recipe card and tell people exactly what to do. Tell them 2 ounces, 3 ounces, 4 limes, ice, and then you go. They'll pay attention to that, and they will make your life a little bit easier because you'll have less stuff to clean up.
I love that. So I'll leave you with one tip. So you guys know I love these jars, but I will make a cocktail. I'll batch a cocktail. I will put them in this jar with no ice so that when my guests come, all they have to do is add ice, shake it themselves, and the cocktail is made. And of course, I brand it with a little bit of a sticker with my logo. But for my clients, I will put their name or happy birthday, whatever the occasion is. All right, so we want to thank you, Ariel. Thank you for your knowledge and your time. We want to thank you for bringing us. We hope you enjoyed. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to send me an email with any feedback. Carly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, before I say my closing remarks, we did have one more question.
Oh, sure.
We have someone that says they're an avid cruiser and they always grab a bottle of pure white Hennessy. Do you know why you can't buy that in the States?
Yes. Can I tell, you're not going to like this, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Okay. So Hennessy is a cognac. And the reason why it is white is because it is not sat in the barrel long enough to be considered Hennessy. So we call it white Hennessy. It is, I want you to, don't be mad, but I enjoy, or white Hennessy is nice. It is okay, so let's imagine a tea bag, and we've used this tea bag only a couple of times, and it's very weak, and it's very non-colorful, and it's not that great as what the other stuff is. That is white Hennessy. We don't have a market for that in the US. And it really shouldn't cost that much because it's not finished, if that makes sense. So I know white Hennessy to be like $50 and $60. It is not finished. But I want you to enjoy those things. It's just not finished.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Erin.
Cognac is aged barrel.
Correct. There's a reason why that the cognac spirit costs so much. You have to press these grapes. You have to do a lot of things, and it has to come from the cognac region of France. So when you put the culmination of all of those things together, when you learn about the spirit in the category, you want the real stuff. This is an actual byproduct. And, you know, hooray for them as far as the business deal is going. They're able to sell that stuff off, but it is not right.
Okay, thank you for that closing. I just wanted to thank both of you, Ariel and Regine, for sharing your master recipes with us, and everyone for joining us this Friday evening. The recipes will be listed on our website for download, so be sure to visit our website for the rest of the summer series that we're offering. Next week we have a truly hilarious comedian on tap, and everything from today, the recording, the recipes will all be posted at beconet.com/flourish. So thank you all for joining. Thank you two again for a great night. I had a great time.
Yes, this is great.
We will see you all soon, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you up in Marlboro.
Bye.
Bye.